Chinese spaceship Shenzhou13 completes its 6-month mission and returns safely. The city's COVID caseload falls further to below 800. And Chief Executive hopeful John Lee wants current administration to complete restructuring before July the 1st. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The 3 astronauts on board China's Shenzhou13 manned spaceship have completed their 6-month space station mission and returned to Earth safely this morning. It was the longest manned mission in the history of China's space program. Caleb Long has details.
After spending half a year in space, the Shenzhou13 crew returned to Earth safely as their return capsule touched down at the Dongfeng landing site at around 10 a.m. After the return capsule landed, the ground search team soon arrived at the landing site. They opened the hatch of the capsule and medical personnel confirmed the astronauts were in good health. 15 minutes later, the search team helped the astronauts exit the capsule. After spending 6 months in a weightless environment, the astronauts were experiencing muscle and bone loss. Commander of the Shenzhou13 mission, Zai Zhigang, was the first person to get out. I'd like to report to the motherland and the people that we have successfully fulfilled the Shenzhou13 space flight mission, Zai said. We have now returned to the ground. He also thanked President Xi Jinping for his care. Astronaut Wang Yaping told her daughter Mom is back. Nie Guangfu, the last astronaut out, said that he has realized his space dream. The astronauts were then transferred to medical vehicles for preliminary medical checkups and observation. They returned to Beijing at around 5 p.m. and were welcomed by their families. The Shenzhou13 spaceship was launched on October 16th last year and later docked with the space station core module Tianhe. During the mission, the crew performed extravehicular activities twice. They conducted scientific experiments and delivered 2 live classes from the space station. This year, China plans to carry out 6 launches dedicated to the country's manned space project. These missions include the launch of the space station's 2 lab modules, 2 cargo vessels, and 2 manned spaceships. Caleb Long, TVB News.
The city reported 794 new COVID cases. It's the second day in a row that the daily tally has dropped below 1,000. 449 cases were screened by PCR tests and 345 cases detected by rapid tests. All but 12 are locally acquired. Cathay Pacific's passenger flights from Vancouver to Hong Kong and KLM Royal Dutch Airlines passenger flights from Amsterdam via Bangkok have been banned for a week as 3 or more passengers on the same flight tested positive upon arrival. 34 more patients died at public hospitals yesterday. The overall death toll of the 5th wave is 8,897. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong Council of Social Service, together with the Hong Kong Medical Association, have already administered 1 Sinovac jab to more than 2,600 homebound elderly and disabled people. The authorities said they are confident school classes can resume after the Easter holidays as various precautionary measures are in place. Officials also said the city now has enough capacity to deal with the situation, even if there's a future rebound in COVID cases. Chrissy Khan reports.
After the Easter break, half-day in-person classes will gradually resume across the city. But the authorities earlier announced all students and school staff will have to do rapid tests on a daily basis. Free test kits are being handed out to schools to support some students with financial difficulties. This morning, Secretary for Education Kevin Yuan said schools can also get additional free test kits from the regional education offices in different districts if necessary. A pediatric expert, meanwhile, said there's a high possibility that there will be COVID outbreaks in schools after the resumption of in-person lessons due to the highly contagious Omicron variant. But there is a way to avoid school closures in the future.
Vaccinate every children before them returning to school as quickly as possible. For children in general, we recommend at least 3 doses of Sinovac vaccine. And for BioNTech, if the children is between 5 to 11 years old, 2 doses of BioNTech vaccine is in general sufficient. For age 12 to 17, they can consider the 3rd dose of BioNTech. And up to the present moment, I don't think there's any need to have 4th dose of vaccination for our children because of their optimal and very good immune response to the previous doses of vaccines.
When asked whether there will be a rebound in COVID infections following the relaxation of social distancing measures, Secretary for Food and Health Sophia Chen said the city now has the capacity to handle more cases.
We are confident that if we have a rebound, that we are able to cope with the situation. But prevention is always, better than cure. So therefore, I think vaccination is still a very, very important intervention in order to prevent and to protect, people from going into severe cases and also prevent death.
She added the whole community has to work together to fight against the pandemic. Christy Khan, TVB News.
Over the Easter holidays, many Hong Kongers have headed off on weekend getaways outside urban areas. Bustling crowds could be seen at this bus station, setting off for Mui Wall and Tai O on Lantau Island. Similar sights at Central Pier as Hong Kongers headed to seek respite on the outlying islands in Cheung Chau and Yong Shu Wan. This woman says she has planned to visit 3 islands over this Easter break. Secretary for Food and Health Sophia Chen is worried that case counts could rebound with more people out and about this weekend. This as the first phase of relaxation of social distancing curbs will begin next Thursday. Sports facilities will also reopen on Thursday. Reservation slots have been quickly snapped up, with badminton courts being the most popular venues. Chief Executive hopeful Zhang Li said today he would like incumbent Carrie Lam to complete her government restructuring plan before the new term begins on July the 1st. The city's former chief secretary also hopes people from various districts could be brought into the administration framework. Zhang Li, the sole candidate in the upcoming chief executive election, continued his campaigning work today and met with the tech industry and election committee members in the Science Park. There, Li expressed hopes that the current administration could finish the government restructuring plans by July 1st before the new cabinet is formed. In the latest policy address, Chief Executive Carrie Lam unveiled plans to create a new cultural, sports and tourism bureau, split up the transport and housing bureau, as well as expanding the Innovation and Technology Bureau into an Innovation, Technology and Industry Bureau. The revamp also redirects the focus of the Home Affairs Bureau to youth and district affairs. Li also paid a visit to the New Territories Association. There, the former Chief Secretary of Administration underscored the importance of solidarity among different districts, especially during the fight against the pandemic. Li added he's still preparing his election manifesto. The CE race will be held on May 8th. That's when the 1,500-strong election committee members will cast their ballots to decide whether Zhang Li can secure the city's top job. The mainland reported more than 24,000 new local COVID infections today. Most of the cases were detected in Shanghai. Today, Shanghai reported more than 23,000 locally transmitted coronavirus cases. More than 19,000 are asymptomatic infections. Around 50,000 health workers have been sent to the city to combat the virus. Shanghai authorities again said they will strictly enforce the zero COVID policy. Meanwhile, the authorities also dismissed rumors that delivery service in the city has been suspended. Still ahead on tonight's news, Russian military resumes attack on Ukraine. And a look at how tech firms help the needy during the pandemic. Welcome back. Russian forces resume scattered attacks on Kyiv, even though its army has withdrawn from the surrounding region. This comes after Russia threatened renewed missile fire on the Ukrainian capital for what it said were Ukrainian airstrikes on Russia. Alan Buknia reports.
Russia released video of what it said were cruise missiles aimed at the Ukrainian capital. Indignant over what it called Ukrainian airstrikes on the Russian city of Bryansk near the Ukrainian border and the stunning loss of the warship Moskva, Russia said it's renewed its attacks on Kyiv. In the northern city of Kharkiv, authorities said 10 people were killed and 35 injured as Russian forces hit a residential area. In Kyiv, the head of the region's police force said 900 bodies of civilians were found in the towns around the capital. Andrei Nebitov said 95% died of gunshot wounds. He said more bodies are being found every day under rubble and in mass graves, with the largest number in Bucha with more than 350. Nebitov said Russian troops were tracking down people who expressed strong pro-Ukrainian views. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky accused Russian troops of terrorizing civilians and hunting for anyone who served in the Ukrainian government. He said Russia's problem is that it will never be accepted by the Ukrainian people. Russia has lost Ukraine forever. In the U.S., the director of the CIA said the agency is watching intently Russian President Vladimir Putin's willingness to use nuclear weapons.
Given the potential desperation of President Putin and the Russian leadership, given the setbacks that they've faced so far militarily, none of us can take lightly the threat posed by a potential resort to tactical nuclear weapons or low-yield nuclear weapons. We don't.
Burns added that so far they have seen no practical evidence that such a move is imminent. Alan Buknia, TVB News.
Twitter says its board of directors unanimously adopted a poison pill defense in response to Elon Musk's proposal to buy the company for more than $43 billion. The move would allow Twitter shareholders, except for Musk, to buy additional shares at a discount, thereby diluting Musk's stake.
Which allows other shareholders to buy shares at a discount. And, why wouldn't they? They buy shares cheaper than they are. And then Musk is going to pay them more money for those shares. So why wouldn't you do that? And if shareholders keep doing that, it just makes it a lot more expensive for him to purchase the company.
Musk could still wage a proxy fight in which shareholders vote to retain or dismiss the company's board of directors. Twitter says its plan doesn't prevent the board from negotiating or accepting an acquisition proposal if it's in the company's best interests. U.S. President Joe Biden and his wife Jill have released their tax returns and hence earnings for 2021, their first year in office. The Bidens reported gross income of over $610,000 US and paid about $150,000 in income tax. Biden earned nearly $380,000 with his presidential salary, slightly below what would normally be $400,000. That's because he entered office on January 20th. Former President Donald Trump refused to release his tax returns. He said he was not able to do so while being audited by the Internal Revenue Service, even as the agency claimed he was free to release them. The Good Friday Colosseum procession got underway in Rome for the first time since the coronavirus pandemic began. Many of this year's Easter celebrations focused on praying for peace in Ukraine. Daniel Rao tells us more.
The solemn torchlit Via Crucis procession returned to the Italian capital, where thousands of pilgrims held candles as Pope Francis sat under a canopy placed on an elevated viewing point. Procession participants took turns carrying a plain, tall and slender cross. At each station of the cross, a different family walked with the cross and read meditations aloud, reflecting on Jesus' suffering and death by crucifixion. This year's ceremony was hit by controversy related to the war in Ukraine. Earlier this week, Ukraine's ambassador to the Holy See and the Archbishop of Kyiv criticized the Vatican's plan to have a Ukrainian woman and a Russian woman carry the cross together during the procession. They objected to projecting what they saw as the idea of reconciliation while Ukraine remains under attack from Russia. At the conclusion of the procession, Pope Francis prayed that God bring adversaries to shake hands so that they taste reciprocal forgiveness. He also prayed that God disarm the hand raised by brother against brother, because where there is hatred, harmony withers. Hundreds of Catholic Poles and Ukrainians participated in a Way of the Cross procession through the streets of the Polish capital Warsaw on Good Friday. High-ranking clergy led prayers for peace in neighboring Ukraine, where Russia's invasion has proved devastating. Around 2.7 million people have reportedly fled to Poland from Ukraine since the conflict began. Thousands of Catholics took to the streets of the Spanish city of Seville as the iconic La Madrugada Easter procession resumed without pandemic restrictions for the first time in 2 years. Holy Week processions take place throughout Spain, during which sculptures of Jesus and the Virgin Mary can be seen being carried on floats. Seville's are the most famous, with 8 processions taking place daily throughout Holy Week there. Crowds gathered to watch a reenactment of the Passion of Christ in Mexico City on Good Friday. The event has taken place in the Mexican capital every year since 1843, when residents thanked God for the end of a cholera epidemic. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
An Easter travel rush is well underway in the U.S. This comes amid airlines are struggling with staff shortages and rising COVID cases. This report from NBC News.
In yet another sign our nation is ready to emerge out of the pandemic, this holiday weekend is poised to become the busiest travel days of the year. Stubbornly high gas prices are just a bump in the road for tens of millions expected to move by car. And while pilots at airlines like Southwest have complained of schedule chaos and fatigue, the number of daily air passengers leading up to Passover and Easter hasn't been this high since before the pandemic.
Oh my goodness, the airport was tremendously packed. Everywhere you went.
Plane was full, airport's full, lines around the block for food.
With today and Monday expected to be the most congested travel days of the year, roughly half the nation is recording a rise in new COVID infections, with cases up just over 10% across the U.S. Hotspots like pockets of the Northeast have seen the biggest climb and are also now detecting 2 new Omicron subvariants.
The virus is going to be with us for a very long time, probably forever. The question is, is the virus going to cause massive spikes? Is it going to cause our hospitals to get overwhelmed?
But for now, hospitalizations are under control and COVID deaths are down more than 30%. Tonight, a measurable change in the course of the pandemic and for Americans who are ready to venture back out.
Back in Hong Kong during the pandemic, many companies have been playing a part in the city's fight against COVID, with many donating masks and rapid test kits. Companies from the internet economy have also lent a helping hand, using their expertise in communication and logistics to provide assistance to the needy. Timothy Lee has more.
As the COVID pandemic rages on, loneliness and emotional distress are becoming more apparent among some of Hong Kong's teenagers as a result of the social distancing measures and other restrictions. Over the past 2 years, Meta, the parent company of Facebook, has been working with youth-oriented nonprofit organizations to develop a method to digitally communicate with these affected adolescents.
We work with 2 NGOs, Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups and Hong Kong Caritas, respectively, to develop a messenger bot for them to provide online mental health assessment and instant support to young people when they feel stressed and they encounter any depression issues during the pandemic.
Marcus, who works as a counselor in the Hong Kong Federation of Youth Groups, said Meta's service provides respite for his busy colleagues.
Our service is not like 24 hours, 7 days. So with the Facebook Messenger bot, the teenagers can share some basic information or some basic concerns of their current issues first. Our staff can check their answers to have some follow-up. So I would say it's a really good complementary tool for us to deliver a suitable service for the teenagers.
As the 5th wave of COVID continues to plague Hong Kong, technology is playing an increasingly important role in fighting the pandemic. Addressing specific concerns, new media platforms are finding new ways to help the needy in the community. Another company providing help is Lala Move, which has set up a medical supply delivery service hotline. The service assists elderly people, youngsters, and the disabled with getting medicine.
We set up the hotline, and then we encourage the NGO to reach out to us when they have the delivery list. Then we will prioritize and provide the free delivery support to ensure those material or supply can be brought to the community in time.
Lala Move also teamed up with Wheel for Oneness, an organization supporting disabled individuals who wish to take part in marathons.
They gave us speedy response when we are struggled in a situation where the posting service temporarily suspended, help us to distribute the pandemic prevention materials to our members with disabilities.
Timothy Lee, TVB News.
And that's the news for tonight. Thank you for watching.